Last week about how Ford's F-150 Lightning, their electric EV truck, is contributing to high pollution and deforestation in the Amazon. Does President Biden regret endorsing that truck back in 2021? Has anyone talked to Ford about how they should source aluminum for the frame from a different mine?
No, do not regret that, and don't have any conversation to read out at this time.
Question about the Willow project in Alaska. What's more important to President Biden, improving energy security or reducing fossil fuels?
So, first of all, it doesn't have to be one or the other, right?
Well,
we can try to be both.
In 2019, I guarantee you we are going to end fossil fuel. So this project would just be dead, right?
So here's what I can say about that. The president did meet with the Alaska delegation last week at the White House. He always appreciates me speaking and meeting with the full delegation, understand what their concerns are. So I'll leave it there. And when it comes to that specific decision, that's something that the Secretary of Interior is going to make.
Energy policy. So if the president had allowed the Keystone Pipeline, the Keystone XL, to go forward, it would have been operating today or very close to being turned on today. Any regrets about canceling that project and any consideration of reversing any energy policies for a more balanced approach going forward?
There's nothing new here. The decision that he's made, at the same time, having one of the most important historical climate, when it comes to climate change, investments and policies. That is not going to change on how the president.
But even with there was a leaked memo that showed that energy, if we had charged less for certain drilling oil permits or royalties in a part of Alaska, then there would be more energy security.
So I'm not going to speak to leaked memos from here. That is not something that I'm going to do. I believe the leaked memos from the Department of Interior that you're speaking to is just not going to do that. I encourage you to reach out to Department of Interior.
Since February was the last time, according to House Speaker McCarthy, the president has sat down with the speaker to talk about some type of deal. McCarthy says he rejects, a clean increase without some concessions or spending cuts. Is the president going to come back to the table with McCarthy to talk about it? What's the plan here?
He never came to the table to negotiate on the debt ceiling. That was not something that occurred. That is not something that's happening. We've been very clear. We're not negotiating around the debt ceiling. This is something that Congress needs to do. So this is something that we believe that should happen without conditions. And so that's how we've been moving forward. We've been very, very clear about that.
It's been sounding the alarm. She says we're about 3 or 4 months away from, true disaster here. Is that not at all concerning that, there can't be some deal?
Yeah, and that should be concerning to House Republicans. It should be.
The president has said that his plan on the budget would reduce the deficit by $2 trillion over the next decade. How did the administration land on that number of $2 trillion? And then does that mean that the president does believe the current path of growth in the national debt is hurting the economy? Trying to gauge his concern level around the growth of debt, given that we've heard about that $2 trillion number.
So what I'll say is the president understands his fiscal responsibility. He understands how important it is to lower the deficit, which is why he was able to do that the first 2 years by $2.7 trillion. So far, their proposals have been to add $3 trillion to the debt, as you
on student loans, the president said last week that he's not confident that the Supreme Court will decide to clear his plan. So I'm checking if you have an update on what the alternative is if his student loan plan is struck down.
The plan that we have before the Supreme Court is the plan that we have for the American people. And we believe that, again, we have the legal authority that the other side does not. It does not have the standing or the merit to really move forward with what they're trying to do. And it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that you have certain elected officials across the country